Everybody, Legend for Life here, bringing you guys a brand new archetype analysis. Today we are talking about the first of the 3 decks from Fusion Enforcers, Fluffles. So, Fluffles are a very, very interesting and honestly, in my opinion, very, very good Fusion deck, which are totally focused on having 2 sub-archetypes, the Fluffles and the Edgems, who then are able to fuse together to make another sub-archetype. Yes, this deck is comprised of 3 sub-archetypes for some silly reason, and make the Frightful, which are basically Five Nights at Freddy's. This deck is literally basically Five Nights at Freddy's, the deck. So, this deck does what it does so incredibly well. This deck is a fusion archetype, and honestly, it's one of the better fusion archetypes out there. It's able to make fusions very, very easily. It's able to dig through its deck, draw, search, and just do so much. It's crazy. Now then, with that being said though, as with every fusion deck, they have a lot of extra stuff that isn't really played that much, but I can totally see people playing it in the future, or in like certain builds. So, let's go ahead and get with the video. First up is Agent Continuator. This card was actually recently announced. That's why it has a little plus symbol, because it was just recently added. And this card is actually from the manga. We only have like 3 cards from the manga. Well, actually I think 4. I don't know when Frightful Reborn was used. So I think 3, possibly 4 cards from the manga that have shown up, well, been confirmed for printing, which is really, really cool because we tend to get cards from the manga a bit slower than we do from the cards from the anime, which really sucks, but anyways. Excuse me, a bit sick. So, Agent Continuator, he is pretty interesting. He is a pendulum for the deck. I hate it when Konami only gives the deck 1 pendulum scale, but hey, whatever, since pendulums are going to be basically dead here shortly. Seeing them only get 1 pendulum scale, and it be a very, very, very good pendulum scale like this, is really, really awesome. So, he's a level 7 Fiend Dark, 2400 attack, 1600 defense. So, just me to get it out of the way, all Edgems are Fiends and they are Darks, so I'm not going to repeat that over and over. So, Agent Continuator, whenever he is in the pendulum scale, you get this effect. All fusion monsters you control gain 300 attack, which is a pretty nice attack boost for all of your fusions. It's just icing on the cake compared to the following effect. Once per turn, if a Frightful fusion monster is fusion summoned to your field, you can draw 1 card. That's not a hard once per turn either. So, theoretically, if you put 2 of these guys into your P-scale, and then fusion summon out a Frightful monster, you will get to draw 2 cards once a turn, every time you fusion summon. That is stupid. That helps so much. This card is so incredibly good, and helps you just dig through your deck and just be able to do more fusion summons. I love it. This card is amazing. His monster effect sucks though. So if he's special summon, you can do 200 damage to your opponent for each Frightful in your graveyard. That's not very great. Really, to be completely honest, you probably only do like 200 to 600 damage if you're lucky. And also, this deck doesn't have any easy way to special summon Edgems very often. I think, judging from what I've seen of the Frightfuls and Fluffles in the manga, they seem to be more focused on burn damage, which is interesting, and I don't know how well that's going to interact with the actual deck from the anime, but seeing Agent Continuator so far, I really can't wait to see what else we're going to get from the manga. This card, the pendulum effect is just too good not to play this guy as a 3 of. Next up, we have Agent Tomahawk. I don't know why, but I love saying Tomahawk. So he's a level 4, and of course he's a Dark Fiend like every other guy. 1800 attack, 800 defense. You can send 1 Agent monster from your hand to the graveyard, inflict 800 damage to your opponent. And then you can send 1 Agent monster from your deck to the graveyard, except a copy of himself. This card's name becomes the sent monster's name until the end phase. You can only use each effect of him once per turn. This guy is interesting, but he's got a few issues. So first and foremost, that 800 damage is nothing really. I mean, yeah, it's nice for game ending if you need to. And yeah, it's nice to get your Edgems in your grave. 2 in particular being Agent Chain, and of course Imp Sabers. But, however, it doesn't really come up to the point where, oh, hey, you're going to be able to burn your opponent for game, because usually you do most of your damage in the battle phase. Now, that being said, though, I could see this guy being as a decent one-of from people, but I don't see many people playing him at all, because, yeah, sure, you can copy the name of an Agent, but why would you do that when you can just play King of the Swamp? when King of the Swamp does it, and you don't have to play the other edge imps. And that's one of the big things that a lot of people don't like, is that you have to play the other edge imps, the only optional edge imp is Saul, but I really like Saul, so we'll get to that whenever we get to him. But Tomahawk, he's interesting. I like him as a one-of. I don't really see him ever being anything more than a one-of. I do like how he has 1800 attack, though. That is really nice for the deck. This deck does not have very much going for it in terms of attack power in the main deck. But, however, this guy, not bad. I like him as a one-of. Next up is Fluffle Doggy. Or just dog. Sorry, I can't help it. Cute things. My weakness. He's a fairy earth. That's interesting about this deck is that all except for 2, for some silly reason, are all fairy earths for the Fluffles. So they're complete and total opposites. Fairy earths, and then, oh hey, dark fiends. It's kind of weird. It's like this whole dichotomy thing, and it's supposed to represent the main character, or at least the character who plays this deck. Symbolism, people. So, Fluffle Dog. Level 4, 1700 attack, 1000 defense. Really good stats on this thing. An even better effect. If this card is normal or spell summoned from the hand, you can add 1 Imp Sabers or Fluffle monster from your deck to your hand except himself. You can only use this effect of him once per turn. So, he's a Stratos for the deck, which is really good. The biggest issue with him is that he cannot search any of the edge imps except for Sabers. And Sabers was the first edge imp. Now, rumor has it that the reason why this is the case is because originally they were planning on not having any other edge imps, and then they're like, never mind, let's do it anyways. And so, yeah, that's Konami, that's terrible planning on your part. And you'll see that a lot with a lot of these cards. They're like, oh, hey, add an edge imp Sabers. And I'm like, well, yeah, he's the main edge imp, but still, it'd be nice to be able to grab the others. But, oh well. Still a really good card and a definite 3-of for most every build of Fluffles, I think. Next up is Fluffle Leo. He's, of course, level 4, Fairy Earth, 1600 attack, 1200 defense. When this card declares an attack, it gains 500 attack until the end of the battle phase. He is literally just a TG striker. Except he gets to 21 instead of 2000, which is pretty cool. Now, however, this guy is just not very great. No one plays him anymore. You used to have to play him because he was, just another name. But now you don't need him, and he's honestly very meh. He's not very good at all. If he had another effect like, oh hey, if he dies you get to grab a Fluffle or something, that'd be nice. But nope, doesn't have that. Nope, just 500 attack boost during the battle phase only. Well, whenever he declares an attack. Next up is Fluffle Penguin. This is one of the new cards from Fusion Forcers. And this is one of the really, really, really stupid good cards in this deck. He's a fairy water, so right away, that opens the floodgates for Treat Toad, or Totally Awesome, whichever name you prefer. I really personally don't like playing Totally Awesome in this deck because, honestly, it doesn't come up that often, really, to be completely honest. Being able to make Totally Awesome does not come up that often in this deck because, really, honestly, Penguin gets used for fusion fodder most of the time, and you can't even summon another Penguin off of his effect, which it just occurred to me I haven't read his effect yet. So he's level 4, 1600 attack, 1100 defense, Fairy Water. During your main phase, you can special summon a Fluffle from your hand, except himself. This effect can only be used once while he's on the field, which really sucks. And then here's the big, stupid good effect of him. If this card is sent to the graveyard as fusion material for a fusion summon of a Frightful fusion monster, lots of word of the fusion, you can draw 2 cards, then discard 1 card. You can only use this effect of him once per turn. So this card is effectively a mini Graceful Charity for the deck. Draw 2, discard 1. That is really, really good. This deck heavily utilizes its graveyard. It heavily needs to be able to draw and stuff, and Fluffle Penguin is just really, really good for that. Of course, the biggest issue is that you can't summon himself off of himself, and it make Totally Awesome, and I love it that they did that so that you can't do that, because, yeah, Toad has no place being in this deck, but hey, whatever. So Fluffle Penguin is really, really good for the actual archetype, being able to draw cards, discard cards, get your edge imps in the graveyard, get your other Fluffles in the graveyard, and then be able to use them for fusion fodder in your graveyard, or for other things if necessary. Really, really, really good card. And of course, you got some rank 4 plays with him and some derpy shenanigans because, like, Penguin, normal summon, special summon Fluffle Dog, search, I'll go for an XCs. Really, really good. Like him a lot. Next up is Agent Frightful. I almost read his Japanese name up here, Fright Fake. So he's a Fiend Dark, 1300 attack, 1300 defense. This card is always treated as a Frightful card. Very interesting thing right there. That you can target 1 Frightful fusion monster in graveyard. or you control. This card's attack and defense become equal to the original attack and defense of that monster until the end of this turn. You can only use this effect of Edge Up Frightful Lloyd once per turn. So it can basically become another Frightfur, kind of, sort of. It's very, very interesting. Not very great, and also I hate this thing's artwork. It's like supposed to be an abomination chimera thing. But it's just honestly not all that great of a card. Now, if we ever get like more Frightfur oriented stuff in the future that is really good, he might become more usable. But right now, he's just not very great. I can see why people might want to play him because, oh hey, you can target like, for instance, Daredevil over here, make him a 3K beater. And, that's pretty nice. I wish he could stay that until the end of your opponent's turn, because then you could have a wall. But oh well, whatever. Next up is Edge of Chain. He's a level 4, 1200 attack, defense 1800, Fiend Dark, and when this card declares an attack, you can add another copy of himself from your deck to your hand. You never do that, and you never want to do that because this thing has a hard once per turn thing and can only use one of its effect per turn. You can't use both. If this card is sent from a hand or field to the graveyard, you can add one Frightful card from your deck to your hand. So Edge of Chain can add any Frightful card from your deck to your hand. Now, then, you might be thinking, oh, but all the Frightfurs are in the extract. Well, aside from Frightful Fake over here, you also have Frightful Reborn, Frightful Fusion, Frightful March, Frightful Customization, or Designer Frightful, Fusion Fright Watch. Oh, wait, that's not a Frightful. And then, of course, a bunch of other Frightful cards. Almost all of this deck's spell and trap card support is called Frightful. So you're able to grab the spells and traps for his deck, which is stupid good, especially being able to grab the Miracle Fusion. So this card is really, really good for the deck. It's amazing and is absolutely necessary as a 3-of. The sad thing is he only has one fusion, but it's also one of the best fusions. So yeah, you don't really use this guy for fusioning too much. You usually just discard him, or whenever you do use him for a fusion, it's not very often. Next up is Frightful Bear, one of the original Fluffles. Did I call him Frightful by accident? Whatever. Fluffle Bear, level 3, Fairy Earth, 1200 attack, 800 defense. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, set a toy vendor directly from your deck to your spell and trap card zone. You can tribute this card, target a poly in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use one effect of them per turn and only once that turn. So not only does this give you a way to recur your polymerizations from your graveyard in Archetype, which means you don't really have to play Fusion Recovery too much in this deck, although I still recommend playing it because Frightful Bear has that hard once per... Sorry, Fluffle Bear, that time I caught myself. Fluffle Bear doesn't he has that hard once per turn clause, which really, really sucks. And you can only use one or the other effect. You can't use both. But being able to set Toy Vendor directly from your deck is absolutely amazing. Now, of course, I'll get to Toy Vendor when we do, but this card is really, really good. He loads up your graveyard with himself, you get a Toy Vendor, and, of course, you can possibly grab a backup polymerization if need be. I've never actually had to use that second effect, but hey, you never know. Next up is Imp Sabers, the original Imp, and the original... he was originally supposed to be the only Imp, which is still stupid, I think, because they did not plan ahead. Okay, so level 3, 1200 attack, 800 defense, almost the exact same stats as Fluffle Bear, which is very interesting considering the fact that these two were the first cards of this deck that were kind of shown off. This thing also had a completely different effect in the anime. It's kind of funny how they changed it so much. So if this card is in your graveyard, you can place one card from your hand on top of the deck, spell summon this card in defense position. You can only use this effect of Imp Sabers once per turn. So this thing is literally freaking what's he called? Plague Spreader Zombie. But however, does not get banished, and he's not a tuner. So really, really good card. The whole idea is that since he's able to reborn himself, you can just keep using him for fusion material. Granted, you can only do it once a turn, which really sucks. But however, still an amazing card. Now, because he can reborn himself, you only need to play 1 to 2 of them, which is really, really good. I still recommend playing 2 because if you only play 1, there's a chance you might get banished, or being able to play 2 allows you to be able to do more fusion combos and shenanigans, so I do highly recommend to play 2 at the very least. Next up is Imp Saul, the one other than Frightful Lloyd who doesn't see much play at all, even though I really like Saul. So, he's a Fiend Dark, 500 attack, level 3, 1000 defense. If this card is normal summon, you can send one Fluffle monster from your hand to the graveyard, draw 2 cards. Then place 1 card from your hand on either the top or the bottom of the deck. You can only use this effect of Imp Saul once per turn. So, not only do you get to flood your graveyard with a Fluffle, you get to draw 2 cards and then put 1 card from your hand on either the top or the bottom of the deck, and it doesn't have to be either of the cards that you drew. So you can put like a Fluffle, and like let's say you drew a Toy Vendor, you can put a Fluffle on top of your deck and then have some shenanigans with Toy Vendor, which we will of course get to here in a second. So really, really, really good card. I absolutely love it. I highly recommend to play at least 2 of them. Not to mention this thing's fusion is absolutely amazing. But yeah, unfortunately not a lot of people play him, which really sucks. But hey, draw power. Fluffle Owl. When this card is normal summon or special summon from your hand, you get to add 1 poly from your deck to your hand. You can pay 500 life points, fusion summon a Fright for a fusion monster from your extra using monsters from your hand or your side of the field. As fusion materials, you can only use 1 Fluffle Owl effect per turn, and only once that turn. And of course, he's a fairy or level 2, 1,000 attack, 1,000 defense. So the really cool thing about Fluffle Owl is that you can either get a poly from your deck to your hand, or if you know you ran out, you can just normal summon him, pay 500 life points, and fusion anyways. So really, really good card. And you don't have to use himself for the fusion material. You can keep him out on field. I really, really like this card being able to just grab a polymerization for literally free, just for summoning it from your hand. Or you can just fusion summon whatever for free. Well, not for free, but for 500 life points. Really good card. Next up is Fluffle Sheep. So, Fluffle Sheep is... Wait, why? No. Weird. I thought this was supposed to be like ordered in level, but whatever. So Fluffle Sheep is Fairy Earth, level 2, 200 attack. Oh wow, that is weird. Sorry, that's confusing me because up on the picture it shows it'd be a level 3, but it's a level 2, and that's just confusing me. I know for a fact it's level 2 though. So anyways, it's level 2. It's a 400 attack, 800 defense. If you control a Fluffle monster, except Fluffle Sheep, you can special summon this card from your hand. And you can return a Fluffle monster you control to the hand, special summon an Edgent monster from your hand or graveyard. You can only use this effect of them once per turn. So while you can special summon as many as you want, and then go for like a Gotchi or something, which I used to do all the time and would allow for a lot of OTKs. But however, the big thing about this is that you can special summon it, return your dog that you just normal summoned, and then special summon a Edgent from your hand or grave. So you're able to just not only dig through your deck with like dog or get your fusion materials from your graveyard, but it allows for so much combos, and this card is just so incredibly good for the deck because you're able to return dog, owl, or octopus, who we'll get to here in a minute, and then special summon any Edgent from your graveyard, go for fusion plays, and then hey, look at that, you got your 3 main cards that you want to be able to normal summon back in your hand, and then be able to normal summon them again and do a search or grab a card from your graveyard with octopus. Really, really, really good card. I highly recommend playing 2 to 3 of this card. It's such a good card. Next up is Fluffle Octopus. Fairy Water, level 1, 800 attack, 800 defense. When this card is normal or special summon, you can target a Fluffle or Edgent monster in your graveyard. Add it to your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a fusion material for a fusion summon of a Fright for fusion monster, you can target up to 2 of your banished monsters, return them to the graveyard. You can only use this effect, you can only use each effect of them once per turn. God, this card is really, really good. So, it recurs your stuff from your graveyard to your hand, so you can grab a dead dog. That sounds really bad now that I say that. You can grab your dead Imp Sabers, or well, chain more than likely, and of course you can grab literally anything. Heck, you can even grab another octopus. You don't have to grab another thing, so they can kind of loop each other, which I think this is one of the few cards that can grab another copy of itself, which is really stupid. Really, really good card also for being able to return your banished stuff so you can do more fusion shenanigans with them. Absolutely love this card. I think this card is definitely a 2 to 3 of. It really comes down to your personal playstyle and everything, but really, really good card. Also, since it doesn't need to be special summon from hand, you can use 1 for 1 with this deck, which is really nice. Next up is Fluffle Cat, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about Rabbit too. So, Fluffle Cat and Rabbit both have almost the same effect. So if they're used for the fusion summon of a fusion monster and sent to the graveyard, Fluffle Cat can grab back a poly, and Rabbit can grab back an Imp Sabers or a Fluffle in your graveyard, except itself. So, by the way, you can only use each of their effects once a turn. So these 2 are good, but nobody plays them because they are only good for recursion. And generally speaking, this deck, it has better ways of recursion thanks to Octopus and, you know, good old Sheep. And really the only one that I would recommend playing is Cat, because Cat can grab back polymerization, which is really, really nice. So yeah, skip Rabbit, go ahead and play Cat. Even though I personally don't play Cat, I just mostly for deck space. That's the downside. Next up is Fluffle Mouse. For some reason, everybody but me thinks this card is good. So, Fluffle Mouse, level 1, Fairy Earth, 100 attack, 100 defense. During your main phase, you can spell summon up to 2 copies of Fluffle Mouse from your deck. This effect can only be used once all this card is face up on the field. You cannot spell summon monsters from the extract to turn you activate this effect except a copy of itself. So, sorry, except for Frightful Monsters. So, why is Mouse not good? You have to summon the Fluffle Mice from your deck. Okay? So that means if you draw all 3 Fluffle Mouse, or heck, you draw 2 of them, which will come up and will happen, you cannot fully maximize this card's effect. Now, don't get me wrong. If you draw 1 mouse, or you search mouse, and then you summon out the mouse, and then you use its effect and get 2 other copies of mice, this card is freaking amazing in that case. But however, it's literally every other case, it's terrible. It's not that great. And you will draw multiple mice all the time. I don't know if it's just me, but I do it all the time. Whenever I play test it, I will draw multiples of it, which just drives me nuts. And so, due to my personal experiences, I cannot recommend playing it. And yes, I know somebody topped it with it, but however, he thought that Mouse could summon from hand. If Mouse could summon from hand, this card would be stupid good. Okay, then it would be good. Then it would be fine to play. But it can't, so it's not good. It's really not good. I will say this though, it's honestly one of the cutest of the Fluffles, but it's just not good. Next up is Fluffle Wings. I guess this is literally supposed to be the wings of the Fluffles. They all have wings, so I guess it's supposed to be their wings. Level 1 Light for some reason. 100 attack, 100 defense, and then level 1. If this card is in your graveyard and you control Toy Vendor, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target a Fluffle in your graveyard, banish it, and if you do, draw 1 card. Then you can send a Toy Vendor you control to the graveyard, and if you do, draw 1 card. You can only use this effect of Fluffle Wings once per turn. This card is really good because it allows you to get 2 cards from your deck to your hand very easily, just being able to draw 2. And then whenever Toy Vendor is sent to the graveyard, you can add a card from your Fluffle or an Imp Sabers from your deck to your hand. So you're just able to go +3, literally. And it's incredibly good. All for the cost of just getting rid of it and another Fluffle in your grave, and then, well, tributing a Fender. That's not a problem. This deck is stupid good. Well, this card is stupid good for this deck. And it's one of the main combo pieces of the deck because you're able to just draw and search so much. Absolutely good card. Next up is Fawful Patchwork. This is another one of the new cards that was recently revealed from the manga. He's a level 1 Earth Fairy, 0 attack, 0 defense. This card was actually called Fluffle Bear in the manga, even though it's a completely different card. This card is treated as a Frightful monster while it's on the field, which is interesting. While this card is faced up on the field, you can substitute this card for any 1 fusion material listed on a Frightful fusion monster, but the other fusion materials must be correct. So, this card can count as the fusion material. It's basically a King of the Swamp for the deck. My biggest issue with this card is that it has to be on field for its effect to kick in. You can only use its effect while it's on field. Otherwise, it's just Fluffle Patchwork, which really is not all that great because you generally want to be able to get out your dog, your octopus, or your owl. You don't want to normal summon a Patchwork, like ever. Okay, so this card is just literally not worth playing. I mean, I'd much rather play King of the Swamp than this card because King of the Swamp would actually be good, but this card is not King of the Swamp. Now, if he had some sort of effect where, oh, hey, you can draw Fluffle, you can special summon him, then he'd be a lot better, but no, he doesn't, so he's not good. Now then, we get to the spell cards. Frightful Fusion. So, fusion summon 1 Frightful Fusion monster from your Archetype by banishing fusion materials listed on it from your field or graveyard. You can only activate 1 of it per turn. This card is literally just freaking Miracle Fusion for the deck, and you just simply can only use 1 of it per turn, which kind of sucks, but oh well, it's still a really, really good card. Absolutely amazing. Definitely a 3 of. It lets you go into so many of your fusions. It's really just really good. It's a Miracle Fusion. Not much else I can say about it. Next up is Frightful Reborn. As you might be able to guess, it just special one of Frightful from your graveyard. And it's not once per turn, which is stupid. During your main phase, except to turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one of your banished Fluffle or Fright first, return it to grave. So, not only is it a monster born for Fright first, but then if it's in the graveyard and it's been there for at least a turn, you can banish it, put a Fluffle or Fright for it, it's banished back into your grave. This card is really, really good. I like it a lot. The issue is that I don't know if it's going to be a 2 of or a 3 of or even played, because generally speaking, you never really have to worry about bringing back your Fright first, because when you're going for big fusion plays, you're going for an OTK. And not only that, but also, generally speaking, in my personal experience, it clogs a lot, which sucks. Now, if it had like a way to protect your Fright first, that'd be really nice. Like if it was basically just literally Return of the Dragon Lords, but for Fright first, this card would be amazing. But hey, it's not. So, but it's still really good. I like it. I don't know how many I should play. I've been testing it, and it just clogs so much. Next up is Frightful Patchwork, which is interesting that that's the name of it, considering that we had Frightwork. No, Fluffle Patchwork. So, yeah, very interesting. And I think this is from the manga, too. So, love that artwork, too. It's really just freaky and shows off how weird this deck is. So, normal spell card, add 1 Poly and an Edge Imp monster from your deck to your hand. You can only activate 1 of it per turn. This card lets you get your Polymerization and any Edge Imp monster from your deck to your hand with just 1 single card. This card makes Owl almost completely and totally irrelevant, for one thing. And secondly, it's literally basically a pre-prep for the deck. It's so stupid. I love this card so much. It just lets you do so much, because you're able to get your stuff, and then you're able to go for your fusions super easy. The only thing this card doesn't do is let you get a Fluffle, which, oh my god, if it did that, it'd be stupid. But as is, it's already almost stupid. It's really good. I like this card a lot. Next up is Suture Rebirth. Target 1 Fluffle or Frightful monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but its effects are negated. You can only activate 1 Suture Rebirth per turn. This card's okay. It's just mostly for combos and just going for fusions and stuff. It's okay. It's just not very good. I used to play 2 of it in my deck, and then I dropped it recently with the new support. It's just not very good at all. Next up is Frightful Factory. This card I really like. I'm going to be honest. It's a continuous spell card. You can banish a Polymerization spell card from your graveyard, or a fusion spell card from your graveyard, except the fusion wave motion. Fusion summon 1 Frightful fusion monster from your extract using monsters from your hand or your side of the field as fusion materials. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one of your banished Frightful fusions, add it to your hand. You don't use its effect of it once per turn. So, as the name implies, this card is literally just able to churn out more and more Frightfuls. You Poly, and then you go for one of your Frightfuls, and then you activate this card, banish that Poly, go for another fusion, or you Miracle Fusion with Frightful Fusion, activate this card, banish Miracle Fusion, and then, well, sorry, Frightful Fusion, fusion summon, and then, oh hey, destroy it with something, or let your opponent destroy it, and then grab back your Frightful Fusion. Really, 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 really good card. Absolutely like it. I don't recommend playing any more than 2 of it, mostly because it is very much a bit of an extension piece. And outside of Edge of Chain, you almost never want to grab this. You usually want to grab Frightful Fusion. Although if you've already grabbed Fusion and used it, you go ahead and grab Frightful Factory. This card is really good, and I think people underestimate it a bit. And then next up is Toy Vendor. Toy Vendor is a very intriguing card, because this card, at first everyone was like, it's okay. No, this card is absolutely amazing for this deck. So, Toy Vendor, spell, continuous spell, whatever you want to call it. Once per turn, you can discard 1 card, draw 1 card, and reveal it. Then, if it is a Fluffle monster, you can special summon any monster from your hand. Otherwise, discard the card you drew. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Imp Sabers or Fluffle monster from your deck to your hand. So, if this card hits the graveyard in any way, search out a Fluffle or a Imp Sabers. Yeah, that's another just, example of Konami not thinking ahead, but hey, whatever. So, this card is really good because you're able to flood your graveyard, you're able to draw cards, and there are so many ways to get this card in the graveyard, super easy. You're able to just search out so much, and it's one of the big combo pieces. I mean, heck, Fluffle Wings, banish it and another dude, draw 1, use its effect to destroy Toy Vendor, draw another card, Toy Vendor effect, search for like a dog or a owl or a octopus. Normal summon any of those three, search or grab back from grave. Hey, look at that, you just plus like crazy off of nothing. And not only that, but also you get its effect off to search regardless of how it's graveyard. You can discard it, you can destroy it, you can send it to graveyard from your deck with Full Burial of Goods. It's such a good card, I love it. Really, really good card. Like, you can even troll people by setting it and let them think that it's like some sort of like dangerous backer, like a D barrier. They'll destroy it, and then hey, look at that, you get searched. So, just a +1 there. Really good card. Next up is Frightful Sanctuary. I'm honestly half tempted to skip this card because this card is absolutely terrible. But oh well. Continuous spell card. Active discard by discarding 1 card and sending 2 Frightful monsters from your extract to the graveyard. All fusion monsters you control are also treated as Frightful monsters. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a Frightful fusion monster in graveyard, return it to the deck. So, this card, the only good part about it is that last part. Oh hey, if it's in the graveyard, you get to grab back a Frightful fusion monster and return it to your extract. That is awesome. You know what's not awesome? Discarding a card and sending 2 Frightful fusion monsters from your extract to the graveyard for the activation cost of this card. You can't, if you activate this card, your opponent can just chain MST. Oh hey, you just neg3 basically. And what its actual effect is, all fusion monsters you control are also treated as Frightful monsters. This card, the literal only reason for its existence is because Sora in the anime played it whenever he was helping out somebody who was playing fusion monsters, and he turned all those fusion monsters into Frightfurs and got them up to extremely high amounts of attack power. This card, if it did anything else and had that exact same activation cost, I would still be hesitant to play it. But if it did at least anything else for its actual effect, it'd be a lot better. Like, I don't know if it could let you banish a Frightful in your graveyard, spell summon another Frightful, something like that. I don't know. Anything. But no. You gotta get rid of 3 cards, 1 out of your hand, 2 out of your extract in order to even activate it. This card's not good. It really is not. Don't even think about playing it, please. Next up is Fluffle Crane. Here's a card that I used to play when this deck first came out, but now it's just so not needed, which is sad. So when I face up Fluffle monster or monsters you control is destroyed by your opponent's attack or card effect and sent to your graveyard, target 1 of those cards, add it to your hand, and if you do, draw 1 card. So your opponent like Dark Holes or Tarantulas whenever you summon out a dog or something, and then you activate this, grab back your dog, and then, you know, just also draw a card. So it's really nice. It's a +1 technically. +2 if you make the argument that your opponent had to waste a card to get rid of a monster, and then you got to, you know, just get back 2 cards. The issue with this card is that it's not searchable. It's a Fluffle trap card. It's not a Frightful card, so Edge of Chain can't search it. And as of right now, to my knowledge, there is no way to grab a Fluffle spell or trap card, which is not good. I do like this card's effect, though. The issue, of course, being that it's just not a good name for the card. I mean, you just can't, you know, search it anyway right now. This card might become better in a future format, like a slower one, but right now it's just not very great. Next up is Fusion Fright Watch, or Fusion Doom Watch as it was originally called, and in the anime it's called Fusion Death Watch, which I really like. This card is very intriguing. So target a Frightful fusion monster you control, and 1 fusion monster your opponent controls. Destroy as many other special summon monsters on the field as possible. Then each player that had a monster or monsters destroyed by this effect takes damage equal to the combined attack of the targeted monsters on the field. This card is stupid funny, okay? That's what it is. It's funny. And it's just stupid funny. If you play this card at all, play it in the side deck, okay? There aren't that many fusion decks out there, but hey, if you're in a mirror match, or you're doing against like Shadalls or something, or literally any other fusion deck, you gotta do against another fusion deck to be able to use this. So if you're playing Fluffles, I recommend playing this in the side if you play it at all. It's a really funny card, and you can kill your opponent with it, because they take the combined damage of, the combined attack of the, damage equal to the original attack of all those monsters. So theoretically, if you're playing against Shadalls, okay, and your opponent has a Winda out, you have, I don't know, a sheep out, okay, you activate Fusion Fright Watch, target your sheep, target your opponent's Winda, everything gets destroyed except for those 2. And let's say they had like a dragon, a hedgehog, and a beast. No, let's say they had a dragon, a Falco, and a beast, okay? They would take, let's see here, 28 plus 19. God, that's like almost 4,000, if I'm doing my math right. That's probably over 4,000, actually. Yeah, that's over 4,000 damage to your opponent. And of course, if you time it right, you won't have anything on your side of the field except for the fusion monster you targeted. So you can completely and totally screw over your opponent, and they take a crap ton of damage. That's what I like about this card. It can really screw over your opponent. Of course, you can also screw over you if you have something else, but hey, still a really good card. I like it. However, it's not searchable, and it's really honestly side deck worthy. That's all it is. It's side deck worthy. Next up is Frightful customization. It's literally just a trap version of Suture Rebirth, but you get to summon an Edge Imp or a Fluffle in your graveyard, and then if you spell summon that monster, it can be treated as a Frightful monster for a fusion summon. It's okay. It's a trap card, Monster Reborn. It's not very great at all. It's just okay. Also, I feel really bad for Lion here. He looks scared as he's about to be turned into Frightful Lion, or Leo, I mean. Next up is Frightful March, counter trap card. Trap counter, when an opponent's spell or trap card or monster effect is activated that targets a Frightful monster or monsters you control, negate that activation. If you do, destroy that target card. Then you can send one of the targeted Frightful monsters to the graveyard. If you do, spell summon one level 8 or higher Frightful fusion monster from your extract. This spell summon is treated as a fusion summon. During your next end phase, banish this monster spell summon by this effect. This card is really good, but it has its issues. So you get to negate any targeting card effect that targets one of your Frightful fusions. Okay, you get to destroy that card, and then you get to send one of your Frightfuls that you control to the graveyard. Spell summon a level 8 or higher Frightful fusion from your deck, your extra deck, and then, well, it's just destroyed it's banished during the next end phase. Now, the really nice thing about this is that it combos really well with Frightful Sabretooth. That's the card it's designed for, at least. Because with Frightful Sabretooth's effect, you'll get to be able to just bring back the monster you sent. So, really good card. I can see it really good being for side deck purposes, or if you're doing against Zoo, because Zodiac, their main thing is, well, targeting destruction with Drancia. So this card can be really good in certain matchups, and I really like it. Now then, for the fusion monsters, we're going to start from the bottom up. So, first up and foremost is Frightful Sheep. Level 5, 2k by 2k, Fiend Dark. Needs an Edge of Chain plus a Fluffle monster. If this card attacks or is attacked, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects till the end of the damage step. If this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, or if this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can you can spell summon this card. If you do, it gains 800 attack. You can only use this effect of Frightful Sheep once per turn. So it's an Armades that revives itself and goes up to 28. This card is stupid good, okay? This card used to be like the Cosmo Killer, as people called it, because, well, it just completely screws over Cosmos, and then they got Dark Destroyer, and it was like, oh yeah, okay. Nowadays, this card still really helps against Zodiacs, because, oh hey, they pop it with Drancia, it just comes back, it becomes 2800, you attack with it, oh hey, your opponent can't respond. This card is stupid good, and is really, really, really scary against certain decks, and is one of the big reasons why this deck is able to just do incredibly well in tournaments. Next up, and the other really big reason why this deck is able to do so well, is Frightful Tiger. Fiend Dark, level 6, 1900 attack, 1200 defense. Needs Imp Sabers plus one or more Fluffle monsters. When this card is fusion summoned, you can target cards on the field up to the number of fusion materials used for its fusion summon. Destroy them. All Frightful monsters you control gain 300 attack for each Fluffle monster and Frightful monster you control. You can only control one Frightful Tiger. So, right off the bat, on its summon, you get to destroy a minimum of 2 cards. And like a maximum of like as many as you want. As many cards as there are on field. And then, of course, all your Fluffles and Frightfuls, well, all your Frightfuls get 3 on attack for more, the more Fluffles and Frightfuls you have. So right off the bat, he becomes 2200. This card is stupid good and can just utterly destroy and wipe out your opponent's board. I love it. It's super powerful. Next up is Frightful Wolf. Level 6, 200 attack, 2000 attack, 1500 defense, Fiend Dark. Needs Imp Sabers plus one or more Fluffle monsters. Must be fusion summoned with the above fusion materials and cannot be spell summoned by other ways. This card can attack a number of times up to the number of fusion materials used for its fusion summon. So literally all you need is 4 fusion materials, and this card can one card OTK your opponent, theoretically. Because, oh hey, 4 fusion materials, this card can attack 4 times, it's 2 5s attack power, hey, that's game. But however, that doesn't always work out, but still, this card is one of your main OTK machines, so it can literally just steal games. And of course, if you have Tiger out, it can become super high amount of attack power, which is scary. Next up is Frightful Bear. Fiend Dark, level 6, 2200 attack, 1800 defense. Needs Imp Sabers plus Fluffle Bear. This is the only super specific Frightful fusion in that it has both its fusion materials specifically named, which did not go over well and is one of the reasons why this card doesn't see any play, even though it's not too terrible. When this card destroys an opponent sponsored by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can equip that card. That monster to discard is an equipped spell card. With this effect, the equipped monster gains 1000 attack. So at max, he can gain 5000 attack power and become 7200. That is a really high amount of attack power for one thing. You almost never get to that. But still, this card is really good for just being able to play one of it. It lets you be able to search out Bear with Fusion Conscription or Fusion Reserve, and just other search cards in general. Not a bad card, but not a great card either. If he wasn't super specific, it'd be a lot better, but oh well. Next up is Frightful Leo. Level 7, 2400 attack, 2000 defense. Adds Soul plus a Fluffle monster. Must be fusion summoned and cannot be spell summoned by other ways. You can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, destroy it, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. You can only use this effect of Frightful Leo once per turn. This card cannot attack your opponent directly during the turn you activate this effect. So he's a focus source, literally verbatim. You can target a monster, pop it, do damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack power. He can't attack directly for that turn. Super powerful card. I love him a lot. Can do a lot of damage, and heck, he can still attack. He just can't attack directly. So you like pop the strongest monster and then attack a smaller, weaker monster. Really, really powerful card. Next up is one of the new ones, and is the most generic of all Frightful Monsters. He's level 8, 2200 attack, 3k by 3k defense, and is a Fiend Water, and this is Frightful Kraken. One Edge monster plus a Fluffle monster. Once per turn, you can target a monster your opponent controls, send it to the graveyard. This card cannot attack directly the turn you activate this effect. This card can make a second attack during each battle phase. Once per turn, at the end of the battle phase, if this card battled, you can change this card to defense position. So you can get rid of a monster. It doesn't destroy it, so you won't trigger those kind of effects. And you can get rid of beals and stuff, which is really nice. He cannot attack that directly that turn, but he can attack twice in a turn. So even if you don't do that, you can do at max of like 44 damage, which is really, really nice. And then, of course, if he battles, you can switch him to defense, which is super nice because, hey, he has more defense than attack, so you can put him in defense, defend him, and then next turn do it again. You know, get rid of your opponent monster, attack twice, switch him to defense, rinse, roast, and repeat. Very, very good card, very, very powerful, and he's level 8 too, which we need more level 8 fusions, especially for Frightful March if it ever wants to be played. Next up is Frightful Sabretooth. 800 level 8, 2400 attack, 2000 defense, Fiend Dark. Needs a Frightful Fusion monster, plus one or more Fluffle and or Edge monsters. When this card is fusion summoned, you can target a Frightful monster in a graveyard, special summon it. All Frightful monsters you control gain 400 attack. If this card was fusion summoned using 3 or more fusion materials, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. So this thing is a 2800 beals, basically, because you generally always want to fusion summon for this thing with at least 3 monsters. So you can get this thing to a pretty decent 2800 and have a beals, and of course be able to bring back Tiger or any of your other guys, and of course get them to even more attack power thanks to Tiger's effect. This card is stupid good and is one of the big key players in this deck because he can't be destroyed, and your opponent's only out really is either Castel, 101, or a Kaiju, which is stupid good. So yeah, I like him a lot. He's very powerful. Next up is Frightful Mad Chimera, or just Frightful Chimera in TCG. Level 8, 2800 attack, 2000 defense, 3 Frightful monsters, doesn't have to be fusions technically speaking. Must be fusion summoned and cannot be spell summoned by other ways. If this card battles, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects to the end of the damage step, so he's an Armades, which is really good. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can spell summon that monster to your field, but its attack is halved. You can only use this effect of Frightful Chimera once per turn. This card gains 3 on attack for each monster you control that is owned by your opponent. So, he's a Goyo Guardian Armades who gets stronger with every monster he steals. This thing is really good. The biggest issue with him is that he needs 3 Frightful monsters to go into. And generally speaking, if you're doing that, you're going for an OTK. So, really, honestly, you don't get to summon this thing very much. But I still recommend playing at least one, because you never know when you might need it. Like, if you, for instance, have Tiger, Wolf, and a Leo out, and your OTK doesn't go through, like, your opponent, like, has Battle Fader or something, and then they Kaiju, Slumber you next turn, or Dark Hole or something, and you draw on a Fret for Fusion. Hey, look at that, you can make him super easy. So, really good card, but he's really only a one-of if you want to play him. Honestly. Then we got Fright for Daredevil. This guy, I don't even think he's out in OCG yet. I think he's going to be a V-Jump promo. And is it just me, or is this thing wearing a diaper? It looks like it's wearing a diaper, and it's just weird. So, Fright for Daredevil. Fiend Dart, level 8, 3k by 2200. So he's the strongest base attack power of any of the Frightfurs right now. 1 Edge Imp monster plus a Fluffle monster. So he's another super generic one. That will be the big reason why people actually play this thing. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can inflict 1000 damage to your opponent, which is very nice. If this card is destroyed by battle, or if this card if this face-up card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each Frightful monster in your graveyard. You can only use this effect of him once per turn. So, if he kills a monster in battle, he can burn for 1000, and if he leaves the field or dies, you can burn your opponent for 500 for every Frightful in your graveyard. Wow, that can stack up real fast. Okay, I like this thing a lot. Mostly because he's generic for this deck, and he's a 3k beater, which is really, really nice. And hey, you can just really pile on the damage. So this thing is going to be really good for just being able to go for the OTK and add more for it. I like this card a lot. I kind of wish he did something a bit more, like maybe you have the Armades effect that, what, 2 of the freaking Frightful Fusion monsters have. This card is really good, if only because he's generic and does a crap ton of damage. So, that is my general thoughts on the entire archetype. So, to sum it up, this deck is a really good fusion deck. It's always going to be a good tier 2 deck. Maybe even tier 1 one day, hopefully, maybe, especially after we get Frightful Patchwork. Don't know how much the new rules affect this deck very much. You know, with the whole link summoning mechanic and stuff. This deck can spam out stuff kind of easy, especially with like Fluffle Sheep and stuff. Being able to summon out 3 of it super easy, and then like make Deco Talker and be able to have 2 fusions out very easily. So it'll be interesting to see how this deck adapts with the new link summoning mechanic and stuff. But overall, for right now, before those rules come into place, this deck is still a really good tier 2 deck, and I feel like that if you want to play it, go ahead and play it. You'll be able to do well enough at a tournament. Don't know how well you're going to do against like super pro players, but hey, if you want to take it to your locals or a small regional or something, I highly recommend it. It's a super fun deck to play. Super fast, super powerful. You're able to make rank 4s of it. You got some access to some really powerful fusion monsters in here. And I absolutely adore this deck. Really, I cannot recommend it enough. And I do recommend that everybody give it a try at least once. I mean, at least try it out on YgoPro. It's a really fun deck. You do have that reliance on polymerization, which kind of sucks. But hey, you got tons of ways to get poly to your hand. And you got tons of ways to get it back from your grave to your hand, which is always nice. So guys, tell me what your guys' thoughts are on Fluffles down in the comments below. I will always, of course, read your comments. I may not always respond, but I do read them. Sorry if I sound a bit sick in this video. I am sick. I even had to pause like halfway through because I just needed a break. So guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. See you all later. Peace out.